All right, I must apologize for my coughing and hacking. I've got this allergy, I think. I'm going to go down to the store and get me some allergy medicine, see if it works. In the meantime, hope you bear with me. This is really exciting. Everybody uses age dating, radiocarbon. A lot of times they think radiocarbon goes back millions of years, but it only goes back tens of thousands. And there are a lot of defective points that are not controlled using all the age dating methods. They presume certain things, and we'll get into that. Let's go to this address here, k53.htm, and look for the latest illustration, which the scientists on the evolutionary side do not admit. The latest illustration of not admitting the uncertainties of older dating methods, ones that go back to millions of years, until new ones have been developed, centers around a new method proposed for dating human fossils in this 40,000 to 200,000 year time period, which is a time of great question because of different things. So the accuracy of their dating methods would be in question then. This new method, announced in the Journal of Science, called Science, involves racemization of amino acids in ostrich eggshell. The amino acid method was developed some time ago for dating bone material at archaeological sites. Because bone is porous, it is subject to groundwater leaching. Hence, the method fell into disfavor because it gave questionable dates. However, because ostrich eggshell is thought to be a rather closed system, it is claimed that items found in association with it can be dated more accurately by the amino acid racemization method. Let's see what that might be. The admissions now being made about the dating methods that have been previously used by evolutionists to cover this time period, 40 to 200,000, are based on the older methods, and they were only provisional in their estimation. And all such dating is uncertain. These are remarkable admissions by them once they found the new one that they thought was good. Anyone familiar with the paleoanthropological literature knows that this is not the way most of the dates for fossil discoveries in that time period have been presented. This time period is critical for human evolution, and evolutionists have consistently claimed a degree of certainty in their dating, which now appears to be unjustified. The author does not wish to imply that the ostrich eggshell dating method is the legitimate one. The point is that for evolutionists to claim that they have now a better dating method for dating fossils discovered in the future does not correct the inaccurate dates of human fossils that were discovered in the past. The dating flaws of the past cannot be rectified because many of the fossil sites have been destroyed or altered, so that a reconstruction to allow for redating of fossils after the fact is not possible. To find ostrich eggshell that can be shown to have been unquestioned association with those previously discovered fossils is virtually impossible. You don't have the opportunity to use that method unless the ostrich eggs are there. The uncertainty of fossil dates in the middle of the Stone Age is just the tip of the iceberg. For evolutionists, the problem is far more serious, but few are willing to acknowledge it. William Howes, Harvard University, states that the dating problems involve the entire Middle Pleistocene era, 100 to 700,000 years, according to evolutionists. This would involve many more fossils than just those in the Middle Stone Age. Howes writes, "It cannot be too strongly emphasized how much uncertainty attaches to placement of all but a few of the fossils, absolutely or relatively, especially for the Middle Pleistocene. Creationists recognize that the problem is far greater than even Howes suggests, but it is refreshing to know that some evolutionists are speaking frankly about the dating problems involving the human fossils. Human evolution demands precise dating of the relevant fossils. Evolutionists now admit that the dates for the human fossils in the significant Middle Stone Age period and elsewhere are uncertain. It means that there is no such thing as a legitimate evolutionary fossil sequence leading to modern humans. It also means that evolutionists cannot make accurate statements regarding the origin of modern humans based on fossils discovered thus far. Their continuing to do so reveals that their statements are based on a belief system, not on the practice of a rigorous science. They found defects in their science, but they still continue with them. Dr. Don Patton says, many scientists tell us that the Earth is approximately 5 billion years old. However, this is not the case with all scientists. There are many competent, credentialed scientists that tell us that the Earth is just a few thousand years old. And of course, if that is true, then the ball game is over when we're trying to evaluate creation and evolution. Obviously, a few thousand years would not be enough time for life to have evolved here on the Earth. Consider the statement made by George Wald, a Nobel laureate, regarding the import or the essentiality of time for the evolutionists. He says, regarding the evolution of life, the beginning origin of life, he says, however improbable we regard this event or any of the steps which it involves, given enough time, it will be almost certainly happen at least once. And he says it's impossible for it to start by itself, but then he believes it did. Time is in fact, the hero of the plot. Given so much time, the impossible becomes possible, the probable be virtually certain. One has only to wait. Time itself performs the miracles. Well, time becomes the Holy Spirit of the evolutionists that miraculously takes that which is impossible and makes it probable, virtually certain. He says, I don't think that time has the quality or that miraculous power, but that's the role that it plays in the thinking of the evolutionists. In fact, time causes things to deteriorate, if anything else. We're not evolving, we see devolving. Newman, in his theories. Now let's look at radioactivity measurements. And we'll see what we have concluded in this introduction here is supported by information we can observe. Dr. Patton says, when I ask people how they believe the Earth is old, usually the response that I get involves radiometric dating. They claim that scientists have been able to date rocks at billions of years. And radioactive material proves that the Earth's old. Well, let's examine that assumption. Radioactive material is material that is not stable, that decays, that emits particles from the nucleus of the atom. By emitting these alpha and beta particles, it decays to become different elements. And we are supposed to be able to tell time with this process, something like you would tell time with an hourglass. Here, in a picture which is being displayed at the video that Dr. Patton makes, we find uranium depicted decaying through radium and finally down to lead, which is stable as an hourglass, which would have sand run down to the bottom. Now, if we are told that this is an hourglass, we can look at this and tell how much time has transpired. We'd probably estimate 10 to 15 minutes have transpired here if we knew to take it as an hour for what's at the top to run to the bottom. Well, what could go wrong with this kind of a time-telling mechanism? Let's see. If somebody lifted the top and dumped a lot of extra sand in it just before we look down, obviously our time-telling mechanism would not be accurate. We're looking at an hourglass with sand running through it. If somebody raised the bottom or lowered it so that a good portion of the lead or the sand at the bottom ran out just before we looked, then obviously our conclusion would be wrong. Or if someone would be able to change the opening of the center so that it ran fast sometimes and slow other times, then our conclusions would be wrong. And if just before we look, the conditions that we observe now were the actual beginning conditions, then we find that no time would have transpired, even though it looks like maybe 10 or 15 minutes have transpired. All of these problems are involved in the radiometric dating systems, which involve the same kind of assumptions. It's not always going to be uniformly. Time isn't going to pass uniformly. Notice the acknowledgement of that by Henry Fall, one of the leading experts in atomic dating, in his book, Ages of Rocks, Planets, and Stars. He says, two important assumptions are implicit in this equation. First, we are dealing with a closed system. In other words, nothing leaked in and nothing leaked out. That's not the way it is in the world. Second, no atoms of the daughter, that's what's produced at the bottom, is in this case is lead, were present in the system when it formed. So if lead formed and this rock that you see has uranium in it, and there's lead on the outside, suppose it was original lead, which there is original lead. These assumptions furnish the most serious limitations on the accumulation clock. Rigorously closed systems probably do not exist in nature. Suppose an earthquake happens, breaks up a rock, takes half the uranium away and leaves the lead. Now what do? Now that's an amazing statement. Obviously for this hourglass or this system of radiometric dating to tell time, you'd have to have a system that doesn't leak. That system doesn't have material added or deleted. But he says you don't have closed systems in nature, but continues saying, but surprisingly, many minerals and rocks satisfy the requirement well enough to be useful for nuclear age determination. The problem is one of judicious geological selection. So you select the one that's going to support your point of view. Henry Fole says, well, how do you know if this rock is satisfactory? According to evolutionists, you judiciously select it if the answer comes out to what you assume it was to start with. If it comes out wrong, then you judiciously unselect it. Now, that may sound very unscientific, and it is, and I will certainly agree that it is unscientific, but that is the way it works in the evolutionist mind. Let's find something that supports our point of view and measure it. That rock might be sitting there for 200 million years. If it's ever rained upon, it's going to leach out the uranium. Ever consider that? How about earth disturbance that might break that rock up, make it smaller than it was? So you say, well, a lot less of uranium went into that lead. Suppose your lead was original lead, not leached from the uranium. Summary of a different kind of radioactive decay, different kinds. There are several types of radioactive disintegration that are known to occur in nature. Alpha decay consists of the emission of nuclei of atoms of helium-4 from nuclei of heavy atoms' atomic weight. This is the type of decay initiating uranium and thorium, whose disintegration results finally in lead and helium with several intermediate elements in the chain. Beta decay consists of the emission from the nucleus of a beta particle, an electron, and a neutrino. This is the decay process involved in the formation of strontium-87 from rubidium-87 and of calcium-40 from potassium-40. A third type of decay is the capture of an orbital electron by the nucleus accompanied by the emission of X-rays. The formation of argon-40 from potassium-40 is of this kind. A fourth kind of decay is nuclear fission, by which the nucleus splits into two discrete parts. This is the action of the atomic bomb, but it also occurs in nature. U-235 isotope is subject to fission by free neutrons in the Earth from whatever source. Uranium-238 and thorium-232 undergo a process of spontaneous fission, where occasional atoms, under the pressure of high internal proton charge, spontaneously break into two parts. In this process, the main products are the rare gases xenon and krypton, along with neutrons and other particles. Evolutionists maintain there are elements in the rock, such as radioisotopes, which indicate an Earth age of millions, in some instances billions of years. Well, there is no data scientifically known which can give a rock a uniform age. All of the processes for dating radioisotopic material and alpha particle decay known to science give a variant in age determination when various portions of the same rock are examined, sometimes huge variations. When the alpha particle decay rate is examined, which is the interpretive line of measurement, it is found that it takes uranium-238 over 4 billion years to lose half its mass. The line of reasoning goes that it had to have been around for at least 4.5 billion years to have lost that much mass. This is not necessarily so. It really shows that the U-238 was designed to be around for billions of years, and it was designed to be here for a useful purpose. It is obvious from the work of geophysicists that these isotopes were at one time inside the Earth. They were expunged or thrown out to the surface of the Earth, volcanic eruptions perhaps, earthquakes. What this demonstrates is that the interior of the Earth at some time in the past was a perfectly balanced thermonuclear heater. If these isotopic elements are so arranged with moderating elements adjacent to them, we'll have more